In this episode, I'm going to be talking about the birth of block networks. Right before Panda and Penguin algorithms struck the internet, and I'm going to talk about private block networks and how you could go about building your own private block network. The birth of block networks. A trick to rank sites overnight was basically joining any public blog network such as authority link networks, which is called ALN, and or High PR Society and other autopilot blog farms which existed, and basically they were charging a monthly fee, and you could submit your backlinks and your content to them in an automated manner, and they would spin content and they would link to you. And it was really easy to game Google with these systems and sites, and these networks were raking in millions of dollars because anybody and everybody who wanted to rank would subscribe to them, and on autopilot would get links to their site, and it would work extremely well until Google came out with the updates and they started hitting these block networks. We want to understand what exactly went wrong, so we don't want to repeat that. These were public blog networks basically, and they were large networks. Probably each of these ALN probably had 10,000, 20,000 sites under them. Probably High PR Society also had that many. And these were public blog networks, and Google found out about them. And we need to understand what exactly Google found out about these sites. Probably Google found out that there were many of these were on the same IP, or they left some sort of footprint like that, like they were hosted on the same hosting company, or they were all hosted under SEOhosting.com. Technically, Google could go out to, there are registrars like directories which tell you which IP belongs to which company. So Google can go out there and easily look up which IPs belong to a particular company. So if you want to host your site with a SEO hosting company like SEOhosting.com, which I don't recommend. I'm sorry about that, SEO hosting, but I would never recommend you. Google can go out there and understand and see in the public registrar that SEO hosting owns all these IPs, and so mostly people doing SEO would host their blog networks on your site, and that would be a huge footprint. So they would just wipe out all the sites that were hosted on those IPs. And these blog networks were literally de-indexed in mass numbers overnight. I mean, the owners of these blog networks would suddenly find all their sites getting de-indexed, and their clients would be calling them and say, "What's happened? My site has their rankings have disappeared," and owners wouldn't know what to say because their sites themselves were de-indexed by Google and penalized. So all the link juice that that you were getting by being part of these networks would get wiped out overnight, and your site would probably get de-indexed or would lose its rankings overnight. And this happened like in a span of a couple of days. So those were public blog networks, and they were easily detectable. Now private blog networks are basically private versions of that, but done really carefully. Like, you need to understand that when you build a private blog network, you need to the trick is not to leave a footprint for Google. If you host all your sites on your private blog network on one IP, you're going to be leaving a huge footprint for Google, and they're going to detect you easily, and they're just going to de-index all your sites, and you're going to lose all your sites overnight. Private blog networks are basically it's just they don't really have to be a blog, but that's just it's the name they've picked up by SEOs recently because of the public blog networks that existed before them. But it doesn't really have to be a blog; it can be any sort of site. So, but we're just gonna it's just picked up that name, and for convenience sake, and it's the most popular way of doing things is just like to set up a network of blogs. And the blog itself is a website, but of course some people who build networks of sites, PBNs, do also use different CMSs and different platforms. They can be regular plain HTML pages also that can give you the same result. Sites like that can give you the same result without being a blog. It has the same effort. It's just that a blog is like a WordPress blog is just easily manageable, and there are a lot of tools and extensions and plugins to help us like sort of control them and manage them together. So they've gained the name. A blog network is it's what it sounds like. It's a collection of sites that one particular individual owns and keeps private and hidden from Google. So Google doesn't know about them, and probably only like a few people who you should never expose your blog network out into the public if you really want to cash in the long run, because if your network leaks out and people get to know what it is and someone reports it to Google, decides to report it to Google because one of their competitors is building links using your network, then that's an easy footprint, and your whole blog would be probably taken down overnight. So it's nothing but a collection of websites. They're not really interlinked to one another. In fact, that's just the opposite. They're not connected to one another at all, except that they probably may link out to some common sites, which are the money sites that you would like to promote. So, and each of these could run on WordPress or similar CMS. We'll stick with WordPress because it powers 30% of the sites, and because it does that and it's so popular, you can build your blog network using WordPress and not really have to worry about leaving a footprint, because there's a large fraction of sites on the internet today that use WordPress. So Google can't go out there and sort of penalize sites because they're using WordPress. So you're well covered if you do that. To build your private blog network, it's not. There are certain rules you need to follow, and I'm not going to be able to cover it extensively in this presentation because that itself is a very lengthy topic. But I will talk about it in brief. Thou shalt not leave a footprint. Of course, that's your main. You need to go by that. Don't leave a footprint for Google. That's what we're looking at over here. You need to hide everything from them, or to change things and randomize them so they can't detect that 100 sites belong to you if that's what you want to build. So do private WHOIS registration, or do fake WHOIS registrations, or make sure your IP hosting is diversified. Don't host all your sites in one hosting company. Leave no link patterns on your network. So don't link to the same site from all your 100 sites, because that's a huge footprint. You want to avoid that. So mix it up. Let 20 sites link to one site. Let those same 20 sites link to another site. Let backlinks to your other money site come from a different set of sites. Randomize them. Keep an Excel. Don't keep that Excel sheet. Don't keep a Google Doc, because Google may have access to that data. So they could use it unethically. So keep everything private. Don't use Chrome to visit your private blog networks, because Google can track you that way also. There are some advanced techniques I'll talk about in some of my later videos. A large part about building a private blog network is buying expired domains. That can give you a lot of authority. People who don't remember to renew their domain, leave it, or don't want to renew it, you could go ahead and snap up those domains for real cheap. And some of these domains have very high authority links coming to them, especially and you want to really target those domains. There is a way to track them, and you can figure out, for example, if a dropped domain which is available for buying has some authority links coming in from a large site like CNN or Huffington Post or any other authority site. If you can detect that and you can quickly go in and buy that domain, it'll cost you about $12 or $10, and you have an expired domain with a few strong incoming links. You can of course check the trust flow and the citation flow, which are majestic link factors. You could also buy domains for your private blog networks from domain auctions, but that's a more expensive option, but at times you can get some really good domains. They cost a lot more, but you could go in and buy relevant domains. An important thing to do is when you buy domains, make sure they are relevant domains. Make sure the content they had on them was related to your niche. So the way you do that is you look at the Wayback Machine or the Internet Archive and look at past snapshots of the site and see what kind of content it had on it. It's important to do that because linked relevancy is now important. So if you're building a PBN of technology sites, you need to make sure the EDs, the expired domains that you buy, are related to technology or were related to technology and had technology content on them. That's important. You need to focus on high quality non-spam domains. If a expired domain was de-indexed by Google and had a lot of there's no way you can tell that because the domain is available. So if you enter site:/domainname.com in the Google search parameter, it's not going to show up, right? Because the site is not live and it doesn't have any content. So there's no way you can tell whether it's de-indexed or not. The only way you can check that is to look at the backlink profile, go into a tool like Ahrefs or Majestic and look at the backlink profile of that particular domain, the historical profile, and see if there are a lot of spammy links coming into that domain, or if there are too many money keyword rich links coming, if 90% of the links are money keyword and not natural looking. And I'll talk about all this in a separate video, but you need to ensure that when you buy a expired domain, it doesn't have a spammy link profile because your money is going to be wasted. You need to build every site on your private blog network as one niche. So choose one niche and buy a domain of that niche and build your site around that niche, because relevancy is huge. So if you want to promote a technology site, if you're trying to do SEO for a technology site, your entire PBN should be around technology. You could have a couple of sites which are non-related to technology and just general sites, but since linked relevancy is a very important factor right now, and Google is looking at the backlinks coming into your site as like to check whether it's if you're a technology site, are your incoming links mostly from technology sites, and if they are, they give you a lot more link juice than if they weren't. So you need to make sure that your PBN has sites in the same niche that you're trying to rank. Coming up next, we have in episode 6, we'll talk about why PBNs are losing some of their power, but not all. They are working wonderfully well yet, but you need to make sure to mix it up. And we'll talk about the new ranking factors that you need to mix it up with. In this episode, I'll talk about why PBNs, private blog networks, are losing some of their power. Not all, although, but just some of it. And you need to mix up your PBN effort with the other new ranking factors that are working well. You can't rank a site just with PBNs alone. You need to, or you could, but you need to make sure if you mix it up with other ranking factors also, it's just going to get easier for you to rank. Why are PBNs basically losing some of their power? The new algorithm updates have resulted in a shift in link juice power. It's harder to game signals. It's harder to game some of the signals. Okay, cut here. Okay, why are PBNs basically losing some of their power? Basically, the new algorithm updates that Google releases, every time they release an update, it results in a shift in the link juice power, right? There's sort of an imbalance. Stuff that was working before stops working, and it becomes even harder and harder to game some of the signals that were working in the past as Google increases the diversity in the signals. Google keeps trying to tighten the rope on what's working, and like PBNs work wonderfully well now. Web 2.0 links work well. Relevant niche links work really well. Exact match domains, expired domains, buying expired domains and setting up your PBNs work really well. But Google wants to ensure that SEOs continue, they need to work hard to rank, right? Because if they worked easily and things ranked easily, they would start gaming Google once again. And so Google needs to ensure that your job is not easy. And they keep stepping up the notch in an effort to eradicate SEOs and their efforts. So the whole balance, there is a shift away from just using PBNs only to rank sites, and they're starting to mix in a lot of other signals. Some of the new ranking factors, very briefly, basically there's, if Google has, we need to understand if there are many ranking signals that you need to work on to rank a site, it's going to be harder for individuals to rank sites, and that's what Google wants. They want to diversify their signal distribution, so things become harder. You can't just focus on one method alone and rank a site easily. You need to work across a lot more signals. In 2014, you had to have stronger on-page SEO. You needed to have good social signals and good user signals. But in 2015, you need to have really, really strong user signals. That's basically user behavior on your site and whether the search intent is met with or not, which I spoke about earlier. The mobile Armageddon was another big update. Social signals is something you need to be doing on your site, and that's basically buzz-based signals, which can be gamed currently, but you need to make sure you're doing that also. So because that makes your site look natural. Things like click-through rate of the search results. This is when you rank a site. If your click-through rate is not normal and people are clicking on other sites that are showing up in the rankings, then Google is going to, the algorithm is going to automatically start dropping your site down because people are probably not finding your title catchy enough. So you need to make sure your click-through rate is high, and your bounce rate, which I spoke about earlier, is basically people coming to your site after clicking on the search result. You need to basically give them what they're looking for so they don't go back to Google and visit the next site. You need to have a low bounce rate. These signals are harder to game, but it is possible, and there are tricks to do that. And if you start gaming all these signals, it's going to be easier for you to maintain your ranks, basically. So you game Google with a particular set of signals to get your rank on top, and then there are separate set of signals you need to maintain in order to keep your ranks. And if you need to work both of these together. That's how you need to do SEO now. Coming up next, I'm going to talk about what Google's next move is, the future of SEO, and who's going to win the war. Are the SEO is going to win the war, or is Google going to win the war? And my view of what's so special about the year 2045. In this episode, I'm just going to talk about a little what Google's next move could be, what the future of SEO looks like, and who's going to win the war. Is Google going to win the war, or SEO is going to win the war? And what's so special about the year 2045? This is just my view, and I could be wrong over here. So this is an optional video. You don't need to watch it. If you're interested in SEO and the future of it, you could go ahead and watch it. So what exactly could be Google's next move? We got to understand that nirvana for Google is an algorithm that understands the true value of the content on a page. If Google can build an algorithm that understands what you talk about on a page, or whether a page is spam, or whether it has meaty content for a particular topic, that's when Google wins, okay? That's when you can't game it. That's when users get what they're looking for using Google, exactly what they're looking for, and that's when content really is truly king. So if you have a page that really talks about, without any other signals, no social signals, no links, none of the other signals, just content. If Google can rank a particular page just based on its content, that's when Google wins the war, because you can't game Google at that point of time. No amount of SEO is going to be able to game Google, and you'll have to write good, relevant content to get your site or your page ranked. Thankfully, this is still a while away, because it's a really, really tough AI challenge, an artificial intelligence challenge. It's not easy to do that. And until then, the algorithm depends on crowdsourced data. like identifying clicks on a page, tracking users, backlinks, and everything. That's what's happening currently. So until then, we can keep gaming Google, basically. The future of SEO. SEO, we got to understand, is really a war. A globally diverse community of SEOs versus an army of 150 PhDs in Google led by Ray Kurzweil, who is the godfather of AI. You can Google him if you want to know more about him, but basically this is a war. Basically, Google has 150 PhDs working for them, and SEOs, the SEO community, the small SEO community is trying to decipher what they're doing and how their algorithm works, because they're not going to tell us, what logic goes into their algorithm, and we need to sort of reverse engineer things and beat them. Thankfully, we've got access to the same technologies that they have, and thankfully we are all connected, and we can all put our brains together, and we are smarter than them. So we need to reverse engineer them and keep reverse engineering them and work together to outwit them at every step. So do we still have a chance over here? Yes, we do. It's a series of mini battles, which we win each time. So Google comes up at the end of every battle. Google comes up with a new algorithm and a new set of changes, and then the SEOs go in there and we experiment, and things spread in the community, and we figure out how the algorithm works, and we tweak our sites, we tweak our links, we tweak the signals, so our sites start ranking again. And then Google strikes back once again, because they go back, they go in there and they change things, and the vicious circle continues. And Google basically has to hold out until 2045, which is the year humans transcend biology. Now, 2045 is predicted to be the year when humans transcend biology by Ray Kurzweil. Who is this guy, and why should you care about him? You can Google him. He's never been wrong in any of his predictions. He's a futurist and an AI guru, and he now works for Google. In 2012, Google hired him because they wanted to bring in, they wanted to focus more and more on machine learning and language processing, and there was no other better person to bring into that team. And my theory is, because Ray Kurzweil says 2045 is the year humans and technology and biology sort of fuse, and we have non-biological intelligence, and that's the year the ultimate algorithm could be born. And I'll leave you with that, and I hope you enjoyed this series of videos. Thanks for watching.